The ghost beyond the rim. The galaxy had forgotten humanity. 500 years ago, during the first expansion, humans had surged into the stars like wildfire. Bold, curious, naive. They built colonies on harsh worlds, open trade with alien races, and believed diplomacy would save them from the cold reality of galactic politics. That illusion shattered when the Carex Imperium burned Sol's last contact colony to ash. The rest of the galaxy watched with detached curiosity as Earth's signals faded into silence. No rescue came, no retaliation, no transmission. It was as if humanity had blinked out like a dying star. But that was only a story the galaxy told itself. In truth, humanity had never died. It had disappeared. Captain Lyra Voss stood on the observation deck of the Stygian Blade, a stealth frigate drifting silently on the edge of the Corinth expanse. Before her stretched an endless canvas of stars, unseen, uncharted, and hostile. Her armor, matte black and laced with nanoreactive plating, mirrored the void. "Captain," came the voice of her ship's AI, Nyx, smooth and cold. "Sensor sweep complete. No active signals in system. Wait correction. Passive anomaly detected. Deep band distress call. Non-human origin." Lyra turned her sharp, gray eyes toward the holographic display that bloomed beside her. A shaky waveform shimmered. A low-power emergency transmission, badly fragmented. "Source?" she asked. "Planet Koros 3, orbiting the dying star Yeldran," Nyx replied. "Formerly mapped by the Xanthi Republic. Last known population, 2 million. Current vitals, planetary bombardment signatures. Ongoing." Lyra's jaw tensed. Protocol dictated that she log the anomaly and return. Human High Command did not allow contact. The Pact's protocol had kept them hidden for centuries. No transmissions, no interference, no exposure. But Lyra had grown up hearing the stories. The truth: humanity had fled to the edge of the galaxy, the Rimward Shroud, a sphere of dark space filled with rogue planets, radiation storms, and dead stars. There, hidden in silence, humans had rebuilt, not just cities but civilizations. They had learned to be invisible, and in that silence, they had become powerful. Lyra had also grown up hearing other stories, ones about mercy, courage, and a time when humans had believed in heroes. She touched the hilt of the weapon at her side, a plasma-forged saber passed down through her family line. "Prepare descent protocols," she said. "Captain, this action violates the Pact's protocol." "I'm aware," Lyra replied. "We're ghosts, Nyx. But sometimes even ghosts have to haunt the living." The Stygian Blade dropped out of stealth at the edge of Koros 3's orbit, its hull wrapped in a cloak of refracted darkness. The planet below was burning. Orbital strikes had glassed entire continents. The atmosphere shimmered with chemical fires. Lyra ran a thermal sweep. Biological life signatures were nearly gone. But not all. A weak pulse echoed from a crumbling diplomatic outpost. "Target locked," she said. "Let's go." The landing zone was a cratered hellscape of twisted steel and fire. Lyra stepped from her shuttle into the wreckage, her boots crunching over scorched bone and shattered architecture. Her visor filtered out the ash and heat. Her HUD blinked red, multiple biohazards. She moved fast, slicing through a collapsed door with her saber, descending into the ruins. Beneath the rubble, she found the source of the distress signal, a battered figure slumped against a broken console. Xanthi, female, gray-blue skin, cranial frills torn and burned. Her breathing was shallow, but present. Lyra knelt, placing a medical stabilizer against the alien's chest. Golden eyes fluttered open, full of fear and disbelief. "Human," the Xanthi croaked, her native tongue rough but understandable through Lyra's translator. "That's impossible." "You're lucky I believe in impossible things," Lyra muttered, hoisting the alien over her shoulder. As she turned to leave, a rumble shook the ruins. Above them, sleek shapes descended, Varn Dominion war drones, insectoid and bristling with weapons. "Nyx," Lyra snapped. "Evac now." "Confirmed. Hostiles inbound in 25 seconds." Lyra sprinted through smoke and wreckage as the war drones opened fire. Her armor flared with magnetic shields. She ducked, rolled, and returned fire with a shoulder-mounted rail pulse, blasting 2 drones out of the sky. The shuttle doors opened as she leapt in. The last thing she saw before liftoff was a Varn gunship hovering over the city, marking territory already turned to cinders. Back aboard the Stygian Blade, the Xanthi lay in a medical pod, her vitals stabilizing under human nanotech. Lyra stood outside the chamber, arms folded, helmet at her side. Nyx's voice returned. Preliminary data match confirms species. Oraleth Vershaw, a senior diplomat of the Xanthi Republic. Status, presumed dead. She's not, Lyra said quietly. And if she's here, it means the war's spreading faster than High Command thought. Nyx was silent for a long moment. Then, do you intend to report this incursion? Lyra didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted to the stars. Humanity had built an empire of silence. They had watched the galaxy spiral into bloodshed and greed, believing it wasn't their war. But the Varn had reached their doorstep. And this time, silence might not be enough. She tapped her comm, set course for Fort Helix. Secure channel to Central Intelligence. Captain, Nyx asked, you're invoking breach protocol? Lyra nodded. Yes, it's time the shadows woke up. To be continued. First contact, again. The approach to Fort Helix was like descending into the memory of a dream. Hidden in the corona of a red dwarf star, the station was wrapped in a lattice of gravitic distortions and light-bending cloaks, its silhouette invisible to the naked eye. To most of the galaxy, it simply didn't exist. But as the Stygian Blade broke the outer veil, the fortress bloomed into view, an impossible spire suspended in fire. Towers like inverted spears rotated in perfect synchronicity, channeling solar energy directly into the heart of the station. Human engineering, post-gravity, AI optimized, and centuries ahead of anything the core worlds could imagine, gleamed like a god's war machine. Lyra Voss piloted the ship into Docking Bay 9, where a medical response team waited in silence. As the bay doors sealed shut, she stepped onto the deck and gave a single nod. She's stable. Diplomatic asset. Priority red. The medics swarmed the stretcher, carrying Oraleth, the wounded Xanthi diplomat. Her skin had paled to an icy blue, and her eyes fluttered beneath sealed lids, but her vitals held steady. Lyra turned to see Director Saren Holt, her old commanding officer, approach from the decontamination corridor. His silver uniform bore the mark of the High Shadow, humanity's covert strategic corps. I told you not to break protocol, Captain, Holt said quietly. And I told you they'd come knocking eventually. He exhaled. She's not just a diplomat. She's one of their senior cultural ministers. If the Varn were targeting Koros 3, they weren't just attacking fringe worlds. They're decapitating leadership. Then we have a choice, Lyra said. Keep hiding, or remember what it means to be human. Holt studied her for a moment, then nodded toward the corridor. Come, the Emperor wants a report. The throne room wasn't truly a throne room, not in the traditional sense. It was a vast, spherical chamber suspended in zero gravity, filled with rotating information clusters, holographic nebulae, and shifting strands of real-time galactic data. At the center hovered the Emperor of Humanity. To most of the Empire's citizens, he was myth. To its enemies, he was a ghost. In truth, he was a product of genetic mastery, AI symbiosis, and centuries of inherited command. His presence was overwhelming, not because of ornament or power, but because he embodied the culmination of a civilization that had stopped trying to impress others and instead perfected itself. He turned toward Lyra as she approached, boots magnetizing to the floor. You are not authorized to breach the Pax protocol. Lyra bowed slightly. No, Your Grace. But you did anyway. I did. A long silence. Then, tell me why. She stood straighter. Because they're coming. Not for the Rim, but for everything. The Varn aren't scavengers or raiders. They're strategists. Their warpath is methodical. They're probing for resistance, not just conquest. And you think we should reveal ourselves? I think we no longer have a choice. Oraleth is alive. Her government will search for her. If she speaks of us, she will. Then the shadows won't protect us anymore. We either step forward on our own terms, or wait until the Varn tear down the veil. The Emperor studied her. You speak like someone who believes humanity still has a role to play in the affairs of the galaxy. I don't believe it, Lyra said. I know it. Another long pause. Finally, the Emperor gave a slight nod. Very well. The Council will convene. In the meantime, you'll remain at Fort Helix. Debrief. Rest. Then prepare for first contact. Lyra blinked. You mean formal? Formal, he confirmed. After 500 years, we will speak to the galaxy again. Oraleth awoke to silence. The room she lay in was serene. Curved organic architecture, soft light, air that smelled faintly of ionized minerals. Machines hummed quietly, regulating her vitals with gentle pulses of energy. She turned her head and nearly gasped. Outside the transparent wall, space stretched into infinity. But not just any space. Structures the size of moons rotated in synchronized orbit. Ships unlike anything in the galactic registry moved with the grace of intelligent predators. She had been taken into the heart of a ghost civilization, and it was thriving. The door slid open. Lyra stepped in. Oraleth tried to sit, but winced in pain. You're safe, Lyra said. You're on Fort Helix, within human sovereign space. Oraleth's breath caught. That can't be. You disappeared. The Corps said you were extinct. Lyra gave a bitter smile. Extinct is a comforting lie. We vanished because the galaxy made it clear we weren't welcome. So we built something else. Out here, Oraleth's gaze turned fierce. Then you've seen it. The Varn. They're destroying everything. Lyra nodded. We know. We've been watching. Then why haven't you helped? Oraleth asked, pain flashing in her voice. Worlds are falling. People are dying. Because we made a promise, Lyra said softly. No interference. No exposure. It kept us safe, but also made us blind. Oraleth's expression softened. You don't have to be blind anymore. Lyra hesitated, then extended a small, cube-shaped device. This is a direct link to our diplomatic corps. A channel. We're ready to talk. If your people are. Oraleth took the cube gently. For a moment, there was silence between them. Then she said, almost reverently, we feared you were myths. And now? Lyra asked. Oraleth met her eyes. Now I fear what happens when myths decide to speak. Far across the stars, the Varn Dominion's High Command received an encrypted message from their scout fleet. Translation: unidentified hostile encountered. Advanced stealth capability. Planet Koros, 3 evacuated. Losses total. Attached was an image. Fuzzy, distorted, but unmistakable. A black ship. Human architecture. A forgotten ghost. The Varn warlord stared at the image for a long time. Then he bared his fangs. Let them come. Shadows break into flame. The room was a battlefield of languages. In the Orion Concordat's emergency summit, 100 voices clashed. Ambassadors, war ministers, AI avatars, and holographic projections. Across the great amphitheater, the diplomats of the core worlds shouted over each other, trying to determine how the Varn had torn through 6 systems in just 2 cycles. But when the Xanthi delegation entered, silence fell. Not just because they were late, because they brought a ghost. Captain Lyra Voss, dressed in black formal wear edged with the sigil of old Earth, followed Oraleth Versha to the center of the hall. The murmurs began instantly. The emissary of the human race had entered the stage of history again. For centuries, Oraleth spoke into the growing hush. We told ourselves that humanity was gone, but we were wrong. It did not vanish. They evolved. Eyes turned toward Lyra. She stepped forward, each footstep echoing in the gravity-tuned chamber. You knew us as bold, reckless, and naive, Lyra said. And we were. That was our first empire. She paused, gaze scanning the gathered species. But after your wars and betrayals, we built another, one you never saw. An empire of silence, of learning, of waiting. And now, we see the galaxy needs more than waiting. The Carrick's ambassador hissed. You bring threats to our assembly? No, Lyra replied. I bring warning. The Varn aren't just another empire. They're stripping the galaxy like a harvest. And when they're done with the Concordat, they'll come for our shadows. The Drell consul narrowed his reptilian eyes. Then why come now, human? Why reveal yourselves after centuries? Because it's no longer your war, Lyra said. It's everyone's. Back in Fort Helix, war preparations accelerated. Inside the forge vaults, human engineers activated the Titan-class foundries, factories buried in asteroid cores, capable of building armadas in weeks. Drone hives awoke. Artificial intelligences unshackled themselves from silence. Human war machines, perfected over 5 centuries in secret, came alive. The Emperor's voice, a towering obsidian battleship the size of a city, emerged from the solar curtain of the Red Dwarf. Accompanied by 12 destroyer fleets and 5 Mirrorcloak stealth carriers, it was the tip of a spear that had never been seen. Until now. And aboard one of those ships stood Lyra, watching the largest mobilization since humanity's fall. Meanwhile, in the Drake system, the Varn launched another strike. They expected a minor outpost, lightly defended. What they found was the Sable Lattice, an ancient human defense grid now reactivated. The first wave of Varn destroyers broke into orbit and were instantly obliterated by graviton-laced rail slugs, fired from hidden moons. Their second wave landed ground forces, only to be met by tactical ascendants, augmented human warriors with reflexes tuned beyond light, wielding plasma glaives and armor that bled energy like fire. In 12 minutes, the invasion failed. In 13, a human transmission was broadcast to the stars. You found us. Now run. The response came quickly. The Varn didn't run. They gathered. Across 7 sectors, Dominion warships massed in formation, led by Warlord Sarin, a being bred for destruction. His flagship, the Maw of Chains, was a living construct of bone and steel, powered by enslaved stars. At its helm, Sarin watched the new human threat unfold with something approaching curiosity. Clever prey, he growled. They built their hive in shadow. Let's see if they bleed in the light. He pointed toward the star charts, where Fort Helix blazed like a flare among forgotten systems. Burn them. The battle began at the edge of the Alkan Rift, where human recon fleets met the first Varn incursion head-on. The Varn came with numbers. Humanity answered with precision. Stealth cruisers blinked into and out of phase space, carving apart enemy hulls with directed antimatter. Quantum Sentinels, human-piloted AI mechs, cut swathes through swarms of biodrones. And from behind gas giants and starfields, dark light weaponry, forbidden tech once considered too cruel even by Earth's old nations, flared to life. But even with centuries of preparation, the Varn's raw power cracked the line. Human ships fell. Warriors died. For every Varn destroyer destroyed, 2 more took its place. Lyra stood on the bridge of the Stygian Blade, relaying orders, flitting through combat data, her mind wired to the ship's AI, Nyx, in perfect synchronization. Collapse Vector 3. Reroute Echo Wing behind the gas cloud. Target their spinal array, she said, voice cold, focused. Explosions flared. Her pilot screamed as debris tore through the lower decks. Fires raged, but they held the line. For now. 3 days later, the Varn fell back, but only to regroup. In the Concordat's central command, disbelief reigned. How did they last? The Carrick's ambassador whispered. Orleth smiled grimly. Because while you counted your ships, they counted years. Every cycle in silence was a cycle preparing for war. Then we should let them fight it alone. Lyra turned from the star map. You misunderstand. This isn't a war we fight for you. It's a war we fight with you, or without you. But when it's over, the galaxy will have changed. Pick your side now. There was no applause, only silence. And then, slowly, the votes came in. First the Xanthi, then the Drell, then the silent AI coalition known as the Lucid Assembly. One by one, the Concordat began to align, not beneath human command, but beside it. In the private chambers of Fort Helix, the Emperor met with Lyra. You've done what we never thought possible, he said. You've made them listen. It's not enough, Lyra said. We need unity. We need sacrifice. You've brought them to our fire. Now we'll show them the flame. He turned to the window, where hundreds of ships formed new constellations. Humanity walked away from the stars once, he said. Let this time, when we return, be the one they never forget. The Empire revealed. The skies above Cygnus Prime split open like a wound in space. From the event horizon of an artificial wormhole, the first of the human Leviathan-class dreadnoughts emerged, flanked by ships so dark they absorbed starlight itself. At their heart soared the Emperor's voice, a living monolith of metal and memory. Its hull bore no insignia, just a single, unmistakable shape: Earth. On the surface, millions stared skyward in stunned silence. For centuries, humanity had been a cautionary tale, then a rumor, then nothing. Now they arrived not as myth, but as judgment. This was the reveal, not a declaration of war, but of return. Lyra Voss stood at the forefront of a vast operations table in the heart of Fort Helix, surrounded by holographic overlays of multiple star sectors. The Alliance fleet, formed from species that had once warred with one another, now flowed in coordination, its wings guided by human AI logistics and centuries-old tactics refined in simulation. The Varn had begun their final push, sweeping towards Sector 9 with half their Dominion fleet. 13 inhabited worlds lay in their path. They're betting on overwhelming us before we can finish staging, said Oraleth, now dressed in diplomatic armor. They still don't believe you're real. Lyra smirked. Let's remind them. Director Saren Holt, her old commander, pointed to the central node. We deploy the Crucible. Oraleth blinked. What is that? Lyra answered. Not a ship. A message. The Crucible was Earth's shadowed secret. Buried in the corona of a black sun, hidden for half a millennium, it was a planet-sized engine of light. Not a weapon to kill ships, but one to burn through lies. It was humanity's truth made visible. When activated, its quantum pulse swept across the sector like a ripple through reality. Cloaks failed. Hidden fleets were revealed. Varn camouflage disintegrated. No more hiding. For anyone. And on every comms channel, one transmission echoed in 1,000 languages. We are humanity. You hunted us in darkness. Now you face us in the light. The Varn hesitated, for the first time in recorded history. Then they roared and charged. The Battle of Alaris Ridge was unlike anything the galaxy had seen since the fall of the precursor races. The Varn fielded dreadhulks and entropy cannons, enslaved black holes laced into their armor. They struck like tidal waves of fire and bone. But humanity met them with an empire built on loss and rage. Ascendant Marines, genetically sculpted and paired with adaptive combat suits, fought from orbit to surface without pause. Gravitic artillery bent space itself, sending Varn ships into fatal loops. Human AIs infiltrated Dominion command nodes and turned their own firepower inward. And above it all, the Emperor's voice descended into atmosphere, piercing the Varn's center line with elegance and devastation. Oraleth, watching from the flagship Stygian blade, whispered, "You didn't just build weapons, you built a culture of war." Lyra, eyes locked on live data, replied, "We built peace. But peace requires sharp teeth when the wolves come." The Varn realized too late. Humanity wasn't returning to the galactic table. They were flipping it. In one synchronized maneuver known only as Protocol Omega, human forces executed the unthinkable. They surrounded the Varn mid-push by bending space around them. Fold arrays, miniature wormhole generators, imploded into action, turning the sector into a cage of bending geometry. The Varn, trapped between time folds and dark light barricades, had no choice but to fight in place. And that was where they failed. Outmaneuvered, outthought, outlasted. By the 7th day, the Dominion's fleet was reduced to fragments and fleeing remnants. Saren, the warlord of the Maw, refused retreat, choosing instead to ram his failing flagship into the heart of the human cruiser ashes of Mars. They died locked together, screaming in fire. But humanity stood victorious. Back on Cygnus Prime, the remaining members of the Concordat gathered in solemn awe. Holoscreens and neural interfaces carried a single image across hundreds of systems. Lyra Voss, flanked by Oraleth, standing beneath the human standard. Not the old flags of Earth, but a new emblem, a spiral of stars encircling a single glowing ember. "The shadows are gone," she said, voice calm and resolute. "We have returned, not to rule, but to remind you what it means to fight not for power, but for home." There was silence. Then the Carrick's ambassador clicked forward. "What happens now?" Director Holt stepped in. "Now the galaxy rebuilds. Together. But understand this, humanity watches. Always. And the next enemy who thinks they can break us." He let the sentence hang. The unspoken truth thundered louder than words. In the heart of old Earth, long silent cities flickered to life. Temples once lost to time opened. The planet's skies, long hidden beneath cloaking veils, shimmered under real sunlight again. For the first time in centuries, Earth sent out an invitation. Return, humans across the stars, those who had fled, adapted, or intermingled, looked to the birthplace of their kind and knew. The age of exile was over. Epilogue. Years later, children would study what they called the second first contact. They would learn that their ancestors did not fall. They evolved in the dark. And when the stars called again, they answered, not as victims, not as monsters, but as architects of peace born from fire. And when their new allies looked up at human ships in orbit, they did not see saviors. They saw what happens when ghosts decide to live again.